Sunshines! I attempted to film this video last Saturday and my hair was much cuter then, but unfortunately I just blabbered on for too long and I didn't say all the things I wanted to say, so I just decided to scrap it all and start over, and here we are. It's Sunday now, which is April 1st, and at the point that I'm filming this video, I have been vegan for 2 whole weeks, which is so exciting to me. So I wanted to film a video about kind of how I ended up at veganism. I just wanted to talk about it. So, you know, it's sort of like my own video diary as well of this time in my life. Oh God, how long has that been like that? It's too tight, it's too tight also. I truly have no idea how long my necklace has been like that. I'm just gonna pretend that it never happened and just keep going and not refilm any of that intro stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into my vegan journey. Growing up, we never ate a ton of meat. We always had people at our house. People were always staying the night. Our house was just kind of like the house that kids ended up at. Like, our friends were always over. I am the oldest of 4 siblings, so that in and of itself is a handful of kids. So, you know, feeding us as easily and as quickly as possible was always kind of a goal of my mom's, and I think that's totally fair. So a few meals that I remember, like as a kid, we would always just have kind of on or around were things like macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. We almost always had a pot of rice on in the rice cooker, and so rice and like canned chili was a thing. We also in the summertime had a fire pit, so we would just get one of those big hot dog packs from Costco and like grill those up over the open fire. As a kid, I never really liked the texture of meat. I never really liked or enjoyed eating it. So I wouldn't really chew it, and that's not good. I came to learn later. But yeah, I wouldn't really chew the hot dogs because the texture and like the idea of it just kind of felt weird. I remember the meat in the chili feeling very fake. So that was kind of how I felt about meat growing up. As a child, I also always loved animals. I truly believed that animals could understand me. We had a horse growing up, we had lots of cats, we had a dog, and I just remember even the wild animals, like I would go out into the woods for hours and hours and hours on end and just make friends with nature and the animals, and that was my happy place. I was homeschooled, but I took a science class from a local teacher, and when it came time to dissect the frogs, I just was really uncomfortable with that. Like, I was that weird kid who would like save earthworms when it was raining. I would like scoop them up off the sidewalk and take them back to the dirt, and felt bad squishing an ant. Like, that was me. So my love of animals has always been super prevalent. I definitely feel a very deep connection to animals. I think that animals have a way of communicating with us. I feel like I'm one of those people who can communicate with animals in a really effortless kind of way, and I've always felt that way. I still feel that way. My love of animals has always been a fundamental part of who I am. I just hate suffering. I hate people or creatures feeling hurt or left out. So that's kind of my childhood in a nutshell, the sort of early building blocks, if you will, of my stepping stones towards vegetarianism. So fast forwarding to when I began my college career, I did Running Start. So I started college when I was 16, and I don't know if your states have Running Start, and I can definitely go into more detail about kind of my college experience if that's something that is interesting sounding to you guys, but essentially I was finishing high school at the same time as I was beginning my AA degree. I was 16 at the time, and I was really convinced that I was going to be in films and also be a journalist. I wanted to be Rory Gilmore, and I wanted to be on the Disney Channel, and those were my 2 kind of like pillars of life goals at the time. And so because of this, I got really involved with theater. I took a lot of film classes, and of course I got involved with the student newspaper. Around this time, I was also getting very involved with YouTube. I was making a lot of videos. I was watching a lot of videos. I was watching the Green Brothers, and at the time, Hank Green had Eco Geek, which was an online media site about kind of like the environmentally eco-conscious being a geek. Reading that a lot. I was super influenced by the 60s and the 70s growing up. I grew up listening to the Beatles, Elton John, the Beach Boys, Fleetwood Mac, stuff like this. So kind of that whole era of the 60s and the 70s and the peace hippie, love, joy kind of movement was totally my jam. I still feel that way. I still feel like a flower child totally at my core. I was a literal tree hugger. Along this journey of kind of these influences in the back of my mind, I started taking a film class, and in this film class, it was actually a documentary film class, and this was my first real taste of documentaries. Like, I went off the deep end with documentaries. I started watching all documentaries I could get my hands on, and most of the documentaries I was drawn to had to do with the environment because, like I said at the time, this was the lens that I was really looking at the world through. So because a lot of the documentaries I was watching had to do with environmentalism, food was also a part of that. So I was watching documentaries like Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, a lot of Michael Moore's Supersize Me, and I was hugely passionate about these things. So I started, you know, really digging into recycling and like just understanding the world and like consumerism and waste and food waste. And it was around this time that I discovered that vegetarianism was a thing. I'd never heard that term before. I never knew that was a thing, and after learning what it was, I don't entirely remember like my awakening to this word, other than I remember learning about it around this time. I decided that this is what I needed to do, and like I already said, we didn't eat a ton of meat at home anyway, and vegetarianism seemed like the next logical step for me. So for the environment and for animals, I decided to become a vegetarian. And I don't remember ever making like a declaration that I was going to become a vegetarian. It was a gradual thing. It was something that shifted over time, and eventually I self-identified as vegetarianism and people around me understood I was a vegetarian. I was about 16 at the time, so this was about 12 years ago. So about 6 or 7 years into this journey of vegetarianism, I actually was still eating fish and I was still eating eggs, definitely in baked goods, also on their own. And I still consider myself a vegetarian. There are tons of different types of vegetarians, there are tons of different types of vegans. Everybody approaches their diet in a very different way. Just like the world, nothing is black and white. So about 6 or 7 years into my vegetarian journey, I discovered the word pescatarian. Pescatarians tend to be a vegetarian that does not eat meat, but they eat fish on occasion and eggs on occasion. And so this is kind of the category that I learned that I fell into. I didn't eat fish or eggs a ton, but I definitely ate them some. And so I shifted from calling myself a vegetarian to a pescatarian, although most people understand more of what a vegetarian is, so I would still call myself that in the presence of company and if I was going somewhere, etc., etc. I never really liked the texture of eating fish or eggs either, and so I started transitioning 4 or 5 years ago away from fish and eggs. So I cut fish entirely and I stopped eating eggs on their own. I would still eat things like butter or eggs in pastries. I told people I wasn't pastry picky. That's kind of where I was at with that. It was probably about a year ago or so that I started watching some of the documentaries that led me to vegetarianism in the beginning. So these were documentaries like Cowspiracy and Food Inc., Forks Over Knives, and I discovered the documentary Vegucated. And Vegucated is hands down the first documentary I would recommend to anybody curious about vegetarianism or veganism. It's very approachable. It's an experimental type documentary where this woman takes these 3 individuals from all different walks of life on a journey to veganism for a certain period of time, and it's fantastic. They visit a farm animal sanctuary. There is very minimal, intense graphical elements like a lot of documentaries have. Like Cowspiracy is probably the most intense, the most off the deep end you could possibly go as far as like graphic images go, so just kind of know that if you're starting to dip your toes into the documentary realm. But yeah, so I discovered Vegucated, and this was one of my first introductions probably about 2 years ago to veganism. It felt really difficult. I was still drinking milk, I was still eating cheese, and it wasn't until probably about 1.5 years ago that I switched over butter, I switched over milk to all plant-based milks and all plant-based butters, and cheese was kind of my only holdout, and also pastries. I was getting there. Like, these are baby steps, right? Like, this is a long journey that I've been on many, many years. Lots of ideals, lots of research, lots of exposure has kind of led me on this journey. And so about 3 weeks ago now, probably, I was at a friend's house. I was babysitting their dog, and I just happened to be on Hulu, and I discovered this documentary called What the Health. And I didn't know about this one. I kind of haven't watched documentaries as much as I used to in a while, and What the Health is a documentary that's focused entirely on food. It's definitely a veganism type documentary, but it focuses on food. It's by the same people who did Cowspiracy. It's pretty intense still, but it's not as intense as Cowspiracy, and like, wow. It just hit me in the face like a ton of bricks that I needed to be a vegan. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't be someone who loved creatures and wanted to reduce suffering in the world without making this change. Like, it was the only thing left I felt like I could do. I just decided that then and there that I needed to be a vegan and that I was going to pull the plug and 100% go plant-based on St. Patrick's Day. So that is what I did. On March 17th, I became a full vegan, and I consider myself a honey vegan, so I still consume honey from time to time. I probably still will for a while. I'm using products that, like my makeup products and beauty products, aren't 100% vegan yet, and I still have things in my wardrobe that aren't 100% vegan just because I'd purchased them so long ago. And yes, I feel bad about that, and I'm not going to go out of my way to buy products that are animal-based in any way moving forward, but I'm also not going to throw all of that stuff away at this point. I'm not at that place. That's where I'm at. That's kind of the journey that led me here. It's something that I needed to do for myself because my Venn diagram of how I made it to vegetarianism, which is like the environment and animals, started to overlap with health, and those three things kind of combined made veganism the only option for me. I wanted to go there. There's a lot of things that I could still talk about being a vegetarian and being vegan, like diet and supplements and health related things. I could go more into that if you guys are curious about it. I'm not a medical professional, but I can definitely share my experience. It's crazy that just getting rid of cheese, because that was literally the only thing, cheese and pastries were the only thing for the last like year or so that were left for me. Just getting rid of that has changed my life so much already. I feel lighter, I feel more awake and more rejuvenated and healthy. Really quickly, to end this video, I wanted to share a few resources of things that have really helped me. So I'll make sure to leave this down below as well, but there are definitely a bunch of documentaries I would recommend checking out. Vegucated is the first one, I would say. It's more, you know, just calm and approachable. Cowspiracy, Forks Over Knives, Food Inc. Supersize Me is another good one, though it's not like vegetarian or vegan related. It might turn you vegetarian or vegan. An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. With the health, definitely documentaries worth checking out. And as with anything in life, do your own research as well. Make sure that it's differentiated. Watch documentaries, read lots of blogs, read books, read articles. And that's what I did, right? Is like I really wanted to find out what was out there and what was the true information, what was the information that I believe, because there's so much shenanigans that happens between the food industry and the government and what we're told to put in our bodies, and it's crazy. There's a lot of incest in those two departments, so definitely do your own research and kind of just go with your gut and what you believe and what you find, because only you can make those decisions for yourself truly at the end of the day. A few YouTubers that I discovered sort of early on in my curiosity about veganism a couple years back. Cheap Lazy Vegan, she's amazing. Her channel is just exactly what it sounds like. It's inexpensive vegan meals for people who are lazy, like me, like herself. Sweet Potato Soul is another one. She's fantastic. She posts a lot of videos that are also super attainable. Madeline Olivia is someone I've discovered more recently. She does a lot of like day in the life of being a vegan videos. She's got some great stuff on her channel. And then Dana from Minimalist Baker, almost all of her recipes are vegan. They're definitely more plant-based than anything. A lot of them are vegetarian, but a lot of them are vegan. I would also say that if you're into podcasts, one that I would definitely recommend checking out is called the Chick Peeps podcast, and Ivana Lynch from Harry Potter is sort of the founder of this podcast. She talks with a bunch of people. They have industry professionals on. It's really fantastic and encouraging. As I explore more, I will definitely share more. I'll probably make videos on like my favorite discoveries that I've made. I had someone ask me on Twitter what my favorite like easy work night meal was that was inexpensive and easy to do, and definitely it's like tofu, sweet potatoes, and rice. I finally learned how to make the most fail-proof tofu ever from Cheap Lazy Vegan, actually, so I'll link her video down below, but I'll just do some brown rice, some tofu with this soyaki sauce that she talks about in her video from Trader Joe's, and some sweet potatoes, which are so delicious and so high in nutrients and easy. I'll make sure that tofu recipe is linked down below. I am not here to judge anyone. I want to make that abundantly clear as well. Just because I'm a vegan, just because I've been a vegetarian for almost 13 years, like, that doesn't mean that you have to be. Like, my wife, Emily, is not a vegetarian. Sure, she's been eating a lot more vegetarian since she started dating me and marrying me, but she is not a vegetarian, and I know a lot of friends, the majority of my friends are not vegetarian, the majority of my friends are not vegan, and that's okay. We're all at different places on our journey. For me, this was something that I needed to do for the environment, for animals, for my health, and you might be at a different place, you might never get there, but you know, if you're curious, educate yourself, read, watch documentaries, explore kind of some of the health reasons that you might end up here. It's all about just causing less harm and causing less suffering, and I want to leave the world a better place than when I left it. And there are so many things about the animal agriculture, you know, experience in our country that are so harmful to people, the planet, the animals themselves, and for that reason alone it was enough for me to kind of start this journey. That's where I'm at. I hope this has been an interesting video for you guys. It's probably still been all over the place, but if you guys have any more questions for me, please leave them down below or find me on Twitter or Instagram. I'm at Mallory on both of those, and I'd love to answer your questions. I could do an Instagram live, I could do Instagram stories, I could make another video. I think this is going to be something that I'll talk about in many forms, in many ways, because having you guys to talk to is great when I don't want to annoy my friends and family with all this talk about veganism all the time. So I hope this video has been interesting. Resources will be down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video sometime, hopefully very soon. Okay, bye!